what it is? The matrix is everywhere. It's all around us. Even now in this very room, you can see it when you look out the window or when you turn on the television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? Unfortunately, no one can be told what the matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there's no going back. That is my favorite part. Morpheus talking to Neo from the Matrix. Hopefully you guys have all seen that movie, at least one of them. The concept of white privilege is not about demonizing white people or victimizing people of color. It is merely a subconscious, accepted system that most of us, black, brown, yellow, and white, do not even know we're a part of, and it's no one's fault. I was raised in Eastern Washington in a city called Pullman. My parents went to Washington State University, where they met and created me and my brothers. We were surrounded by predominantly white people. I attended private schools, where my brothers and I were literally the only 3 people of color in the school. This upbringing afforded me the opportunity to have a balanced view of white people as friends and allies. And at the same time, my parents encouraged me to be in touch with who I was as a black girl. I come to you today not as some angry black woman or a woman who's experienced blatant racism, because honestly, I actually never have. I do come to you as an objective, loving woman raising 3 black sons who desperately desires for her fellow human beings of all races, including my own, to get out of the matrix, to gain awareness. The awareness that white privilege does exist. It's very real and it can be dismantled. Today I'm going to define white privilege, expose examples of white privilege, and share how all of us can dispel the matrix of white privilege. White privilege is not what people think it is. Let's take out the white and just define the word privilege. Merriam-Webster.com defines privilege as a noun, which is a person, place, or thing. A right or a benefit that is given to some people and not to others. A right or immunity granted as a peculiar benefit, advantage, or favor. The ESL definition, for those who are learning English, a right or benefit that is given to some people and not to others. If you're a student or a child, the definition is a right or liberty granted as a favor or benefit, especially to some and not to others. Peggy McIntosh, which is a feminist and anti-racist, defines privilege as this. Privilege exists when one group has something of value that is denied to others simply because of the group they belong to, rather than because of anything they've done or failed to do. Access to privilege doesn't determine one outcome, but it is definitely an asset that makes it more likely that whatever talent, ability, and aspirations a person with privilege has will result in something positive for them. Now that we know the definition of privilege, and we've learned that it's a noun, which means it's not something you do, intend, or even an attitude, it simply just exists. This takes the negative connotation out of the word. As I stated earlier, I had what many consider to be a privileged upbringing, going to private schools, living in a middle upper class neighborhood, and never wondering where my next meal would come from. Does this make me a bad person? Did I even know I was privileged? Or was that just normal life for me? It was normal life for Latasha, especially the way I told it. I did not know that there were people that were living in less fortunate circumstances, whose parents could not afford a better life for them. I had no idea until I was exposed to it, until I was made aware. This awareness evoked an empathy in me. I did not turn a blind eye to other women my age who could not afford the upbringing that I had. This is a huge reason why I changed my major from business to social services. I chose to step out of my matrix of a privileged middle upper class upbringing. Bottom line, being privileged is not bad. It's not your fault. But it does give you a responsibility and a power to empower and come alongside those who are not privileged. Now, what is white privilege? It's not racism, which is a verb. It's not prejudice. It's not segregation. Hopefully, deductively, we have figured out that after defining the word privilege, just like I did not know that I was privileged, most white people have no idea that they're privileged. Racism is intentional. Prejudice is being ignorantly intentional, and segregation is a physical manifestation of racism and prejudice. So just because you're privileged as a white person does not mean you're racist, period. Whether you want to be privileged or not, you just are because you're white. It's no more your fault than it was my fault being born to a middle upper class family. Tolerance.org defines white privilege as this: a transparent preference for whiteness that saturates our society. White skin privilege serves several functions. First, it provides white people with perks that we do not earn, that people of color do not enjoy. Second, it creates real advantages for us, meaning white people. White people are immune to a lot of challenges. Finally, white privilege shapes the world in which we live, the way that we navigate and interact with one another and with the world. Now, it was important for me to set the stage so that your shield would go down and lowered and realize white privilege isn't bad, you're not all bad people, okay? Which brings me to my next point of actual examples of what white privilege is. You may not have thought of these things. Actually, before researching for this speech, I hadn't even thought of these things. So like the Matrix, white privilege is all around us. In Peggy McIntosh's White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, she shares some insights on examples of white privilege. So she's speaking in first person. I'm going to be speaking the same way, as if I was white. I can, if I wish, arrange to be in a company of people of my race most of the time. I can be pretty sure that my neighbors in such location, in any location I choose to move, will be neutral or pleasant to me. I can go shopping alone most of the time, pretty well assured that I will not be followed or harassed. I can turn on the TV and open the front page of the paper and see people of my race widely represented. I can be sure that my children will be given curricular materials that testify to the existence of their race. I can arrange to protect my children most of the time from people who are not like them. I can actually create environments where they will never see other people except for me. I can be sure that if I need legal or medical help, my race will not work against me. I can choose blemish cover bandages, like Band-Aids, in flesh color, and have them more likely match my. Now, white privilege, next I'm going to talk about white privilege and how it's viewed in the world. An article called Racism and White Privilege, written by the Southern Poverty Law Firm, shares. The third thing that white privilege does to shape in the way in which we view the world and in the way in which the world views us. When we're told about our national heritage or civilization, again, this is in first person, I apologize, you guys, so I'm speaking as a white person, okay. I'm shown that people of my color made it what it is. Related to the schools that I attend or have attended using standard textbooks, which widely reflect people of white color and their contributions to the world. When I look at national currency, of course, until just recently, or see photographs of monuments in the National Mall in Washington, D.C., I see people of my race widely represented. And again, this is not just recently. Now, of course, I have many white friends. Actually, most of them are white just because I culturally very relate to them. And they would argue that they were born in poverty or lived in a trailer park and they did not experience privilege. My hope is that after what I've just shared with you guys, that you can see that white privilege is not an economic thing. It's a skin thing. With all this being said, I want to move what we, not white people, but what we can do to dismantle the matrix of white privilege. We as the human race can dismantle white privilege. There's 3 ways you can do this. The first thing is awareness. Now, of course, this speech in itself brings awareness. Simply being aware that it exists can change how you see the world and how everyone that you touch sees the world. For example, being aware that complimenting my hair rather than touching it to see what it is, that's awareness, and that can avoid a possible negative interaction. Also, use your privilege. If you're a white person and you know you have privilege, use it. If you're aware that you're privileged, this is how you can empower people. How much more powerful would it be for a white hairstylist to walk into a salon and say, hey, we need to learn how to do all race ethnicities' hair, than me coming in complaining that you don't do it. Exposing yourself to other groups and people and events that are not necessarily white. And also your mindset. Change your mindset around what white privilege is. Stop thinking that it's bad. It's not your fault. It just is what it is. Or that it's an opportunity to bash and assert your racial views, meaning us African Americans doing that. But an opportunity to educate and create awareness. One by one, if you choose this, it will change, but it starts with us. It starts with you. Now, I broke down what privilege is, specifically white privilege. It gave examples of what it is, and hopefully empowered you to become more aware of white privilege. White privilege does not make white people bad, but it does make others who are not white feel badly. Now that you know about it, ask yourself, what can I do in my day-to-day life to dismantle white privilege? This speech has made you aware, but how many of you guys, honestly, can use your whiteness to empower others? What things can you change in your mindset that will bring about change? Is there a business you have access to where you can encourage them to be race inclusive on their products and services? Think about it. I'm Morpheus again. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. What do you choose? Are you going to stay in the matrix of white privilege? Or are you going to get out and do something about it? Thank you. Woo!